and boom. Hey, 2 weeks in a row, somehow we did it. We're back on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. Another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. Came up with this. This all kind of started a few weeks ago. We were going to talk about the new Metallica and the Overkill, and when we just went down the rabbit hole of thrash metal. We did one with some American bands last week. We're doing a part 2 this week of thrash metal, and we're talking about 6 bands that also started out in the 80s in the thrash genre who are still putting out albums currently. We're going to take the top 2 from this episode, and we're going to put them with the winners from last week, and we're going to pull one from the next episode, which is going to be more on the new wave of thrash metal. But so I'm losing track. I'm already here. So one from next week's episode, and tonight's albums are going to be more of an international flavor. It's mostly Canadian and German bands tonight. And the first one off is the 15th studio album by the German band Kreator. It's Hey Über Alles, which was released June 10th of 2022. Next is also the 15th studio album by fellow German thrash metal legends, Destruction, Diabolico, which was released April 8th of 2022, followed by yet another German band, the 16th studio album by Sodom, which is Genesis. I really have bad notes here, which is Genesis. Was it Genesis 10, I believe,
19.
guys?
19.
Genesis 19. I'm sorry. I didn't write that note down. I've got it in my other notes. And of course, that was released November 27th of 2020. Then next, we have another German band who was Ovi said to pick and put on this episode, which is Exumer with Hostile Defiance, which was released April 5th in 2019. Now we're going to shoot ourselves back across the pond to Canada, and we have the 15th studio album by VoiVod, Synchro Anarchy, which was released in February 11th of 2022. And last but not least, the 5th studio album by Canadian thrashers, Aggression, we have Bigfoot here. He's even put his hair down for this episode because he wants to look mean. But if you don't pick him in the top 2 or 3, he may come beat you up later. That's if he can get a visa to get in the United States. We may be safe here in the States. So that album is entitled From Hell with Hate. It was released November 17th of 2022. So we've got 6 more bands doing 6 more tonight. It was 6 last week. It was 6 this week. It'll be 6 next week. I guess that's 666. That's Steve Levin's one of his favorite numbers, I know. So
He'll see.
So we're going to do this sort of like we did last week. We're going to go around to each person once. We're going to get their least favorite at the bottom, and we'll go through and pick a couple songs, what they like about the record, what they don't like about the record, and we will go from 6 to 1, and we will go around. And Denny not only plays in Aggression, but he's also our scorekeeper tonight. So I don't know if we should get another scorekeeper just in case he starts cheating. If Aggression gets a bad score, he switches it around with Destruction. You know, he could get in some trouble here, but he's going to call. You're going to call.
No issues, no worries.
You're going to call it straight, right? You're going to call it straight down the line like pro wrestling. All right, so tonight we got in the room, we got our regulars tonight. We got Ovi staying up all night over in Norway. We got Tony Dio from the Carolinas. We got Denny Sasquatch Barth, of course, from Aggression. We've already said it 10 times, from the great Northwest Territories of Canada. We got our local metal historian, Count Ralphus. We got Christian from Connecticut. We got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions, and we have Steve Levin, a longtime friend of Rock Fantasy, and from Mechanical Menace, a local band that he started up recently. And we're going to kick this thing off tonight. I guess the first guy up on I do have the picks, and don't let me forget, I do have the picks for Miles. He cannot make it tonight. So remind me at the end of the night, if I haven't mentioned it, to throw his picks in towards the end. So we're going to start off with Ovi tonight, I guess. How's that?
With me.
With you, you're the first guy on tonight, so you're
best shirt of the entire crew here.
Chinatown,
It is.
man.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Chinatown's
yeah.
great.
Wait a second. I have an aggression shirt on, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
I
Boy.
prefer the Thin Lizzy one.
He likes Thin Lizzy
I
better.
got a vintage VoiVod shirt on.
Oh, now you're playing with our hearts.
All right. Well, I gotta start with number 6, and for number 6 for me is not because of the band, it's just my taste, and it's gonna be VoiVod because I don't have too much, I guess, history with them. So they haven't really caught my attention because they play music that is too technical for me.
Okay.
But I listened to the album and I thought the album was better when I heard of those famous albums from the 80s. I liked this album more because there was like less chaotic, if that makes sense. And the songs I really liked was Holographic Thinking, Mind Clock, and Memory Failure. And for number 5, I got Kreator. I like Kreator for a long time, but I'm a Pleasure to Kill fan, and this new album is half album is trashy, and the other half is heavy metal-ish. So for me, it's kind of I get a little confused that they can't stick just to trash metal. But there are some good songs on the album, like Killer of Jesus, Conquer and Destroy, and Dying Planet are my favorites from this one.
Cool.
Number 4, we got Exumer. I like the Exumer really well. I like the 80s albums. I think they are probably a Slayer clone, but I like it because it's fast and it's aggressive. And the favorite songs from the newest album is Descent, The Order of the Shadows, and Raptor. As for number 3, we got Sodom. I'm really happy that Frank Blackfire is back. I hope for the next album he gets to shine a little more than he did on this album. I guess this is the first album he is back with Sodom from his break from, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, since Agent Orange, it's his first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope it was, because Frank Blackfire here is kind of, when you see out those old Sodom live videos, he is the guy that really takes off, and he is the, yeah. And for the songs I really like on this album is Waldo and Pigpen, the title cut, Genesis 19, and Nicht Mein Land. Then I really like that one. And then for number 2, we got a band called Aggression, which is fairly new to me because I haven't really heard about them until I started to join this channel. They was talking about it all the time. So I have checked it out for a while and listening to this album for a while, and it's like, it's such a good album. So that's why it's number 2. And I really like the songs Crows of Still Creek and Ouija, So Bored, and Left Hand Thursday are my favorite tracks. So it packs a punch at the end. It's like a build up. I like this album because it builds up, and then bam at the end, leaves you like really good. And for number 1 is the Masters, Destruction. And that last album, I'm like, it's so good. I've been listening to this album so much. It's because it's so diverse, and it's like a fresh breath of air has been bred into them, and kind of like this seems rejuvenated and just go on. And the songs I really like is Tormented Soul, The Lonely Wolf, and Horrification are my favorites.
Okay.
I mean, I love the whole album, but those are I look forward to those songs getting when I listen to the whole album.
Cool. Well, thanks for your input, Ovi. And Destruction gets a win in the first round here. We're going to move over to North Carolina and visit Mr. Tony Dio and see what he's got to say tonight.
Well, this was another tough one, and I liked every one of these albums, but you got to put them in some order. And mine is actually going to be a little more. It's actually going to flip flop a lot from what Ovi just said. I'm actually going to start out with Destruction is at the bottom, and it's not that I didn't like the record. It's just I didn't like it as much as the other ones, but I think it's a great record. They've got great speed metal and thrash metal stuff that they've always done. I mean, I love classic Destruction from the 80s, you know, and this goes back to that, even though Mike is not in the band anymore. I thought it was a cool title, that City Baby Attacked by Rats. But I thought it was a cool song as well. And it's got a great opener with Diabolical. Mm-hmm. From there, I'm going to go to VoiVod. And I love classic VoiVod. I love the more speed metal, more death type stuff that they did in the early days, you know, like Roar and War and Pain and Killing Technology and stuff. Then I kind of just didn't get into they got into the more proggy and alt rock stuff that they were doing. And I was never really a big fan of any of that stuff, which later on I've listened to it more recent years and I like a lot of it. But seems like since 2003, when they came back with Snake back in the band, when Jason Newsted kind of had them on his label, that self-titled record, everything they've done since then has been pretty solid. And this one I thought was really good. It's Holographic Thinking. I thought that was a good song. And Quest for Nothing is another one that I really liked on it. From there, we're going to go to Sodom. And this is definitely classic Sodom. It's got the classic thrash metal, speed metal sound that they've done for years. The opening track, Sodom and Gomorrah, I thought was great. And I really like the slow, fast pace of the Harpooner. From there, I'm going to go to Exumer. And this one I've actually had for a while. I was a big fan of Possessed by Fire, which is like the classic, you know, album, which had that Bay Area kind of influence to it. But this is actually the only one that I actually got a physical copy of, and I've had it for a couple of years. And M. Stein, he sounds a lot like Mill from Kreator on this one at times, and it's got a lot of elements of Kreator in this album mixed with that Bay Area thrash style. But it's got some cool songs on it. Raptor, Dust Eater, Trapper, and I thought were all just really good songs. And so like I said, I've listened to that one for quite a few years now. Some of these other ones I have just got into in recent years, or in the last couple of weeks, actually. I'm going to go for my number 2 spot is going to be Aggression. And I thought this was a great record. It's just good speed metal and thrash, like what the kind of stuff that I really like. And my favorites on here were Night Stalker, Ouija, and Crows of Steel Creek. Crows of Steel Creek is a killer track, man. It really is. And I'm gonna pick Kreator for my number 1. I've listened to this one quite a few times over the last 6 months or so. And Crush the Tyrants. It's just a cool chugging song. And I really like the anthem that's on here, Strongest of the Strong. It's a great track. So that's going to be my 6 in that order.
Cool. We got Kreator, and Denny, he will accept any kind of payment, Venmo, PayPal, because if you know, I'm sure that he is.
I sent everybody like a check. It's in the mail, guys. Thank you so much.
I know that Steve Levin's the only one.
PayPal.
Steve Levin's the only guy that didn't get the check, and he has you at 6. I heard.
Steve will rip apart the Aggression, so I'm not sending him any check.
Actually, Denny said he was going to tear apart his new record. He was going to put it at 6 if he had a vote. And I guess as my screen works right now, Denny, I'm going to put you next, and then you'll come back at the end for scorekeeping. How's that? Are you ready?
Yeah, man. Always ready.
And now well, John McAtee could not vote for his own record. Are you going to vote for your own record?
Well, I'll vote for my own record, but I'm going to put it at number 6.
Wow. Okay.
Well, for multiple reasons. One, well, actually, like, it's, you know, a lot of the bands like that we're reviewing tonight are like personal friends and people that I know really well.
Yeah.
But I think, and I love that OV and Tony Dio mentions Crows of Steel Creek, because the guys in the band, they hate it.
Really?
So
Wow.
I took like all my love of like Tigers of Pantang and Michael Schenker and loudness and everything. I like that it's not like speed metal, and I wanted to write like one song. And when we did like the From Hell with Hate album, we already had a contract with Massacre Record, and we already were recording that album, which is going to come out this fall. So we had to write that extra songs, and we did a couple remakes from Full Treatment. We did like Return of the Frozen Aggressor, which is Frozen Aggressor, and we also did like One for the Woods that was on the album. We wanted to like give enough music to Extreme, the label that it was released on, because Dave Rodden from Evolves is an amazing guy, and we didn't want to just like give him like some leftovers before we moved to the new label. So I brought Crows of Still Creek to the band, and everybody else in the band is like 30, 32, 33 years old, right? And they were all like, what is this? Like, is it like dad rock and shit, And I'm like, whoa, relax, guys. Like, don't insult. Like, but anyway, it's funny that you guys like. I like the song, and I think it's good guitars in it. I think it was hard to reproduce vocally for me, but anyway, it's nice to hear. Yeah, I put Aggression at number 6, because I'm anticipating that you guys will love the one coming out in the fall. The good thing about this From Hell with Hate record is all my kids sing on the record. So like my daughter Melody sing in the beautiful love song called Antichrist Devil Cunt, which is one of my favorite track on the album. I also like Let's Burn This Church to the Ground, which is dedicated to the residential school. A lot of natives kids in Canada, like way back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, were abused by priests and things like that. So
No.
it's not only like Satan, even though I do agree with Mr. Levin, but it's a bigger message behind the song that like, hey, I don't care what religion you guys want to worship, don't fucking touch the kids. That's all I'm saying, right? And okay, so yeah, my 3 favorite songs: Let's Burn the Church to the Ground, Antichrist Devil Count, because that's a good title. And then I love the remake of Return of the Frozen Aggressor. It was nice to hear it. Like on Full Treatment, we were like partying so much that the sound quality and the performance was shaky at best. So it's nice to replay it with, being tuned and in time and tight, little things that somehow are important. So anyway, Aggression number 6. Then I'm gonna go with Kreator. I just saw Kreator, and like, it's funny because when you think about the old Thrash record, like Flag of Hate, Endless Pain, is probably one of the album that I listened to. I think it's so in your face. You can feel that young, like teenager angry, like anger, and it's just like, it's so not nice, right? But like I said it in another episode, like they have this like now new vision that I don't know if they try to be like Powerwolf for some of these new Sabaton band and things like that, but it sounds like soccer chant to me, like too much of that shit. Like, do one like that, but when they want to go fast and crazy, they're so good. Like that Hate Uber Alice song and Killer of Jesus is right. Like,
Yeah, those songs kill.
That's
so
my
heavy.
dilemma. That's my dilemma.
I know, but like maybe like I don't know, like they're my age group, like maybe I don't know, they I don't know, like they're so good when they like mad, just be mad, right? So yeah, Hate Uber Alice, Killer of Jesus, Demonic Future, favorite song Kreator, but it's at number 5. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Destruction. It took me forever to listen to this. I'm such a good friend with Mike, and I don't like that he's not in the band, but I got over it. The 2 new dudes are super awesome guys. It's a good album. It's a good, like, it's good music. They're also in that album some element again of like soccer chant once in a while, like that, like melodic weird shit. Like, but it's really well done. Favorite song, No Faith in Humanity. Servant of the Beast, and of course that City Baby Attacked by Rats, which is a GBH cover, one of my favorite like punk rock band ever. They always have the last track. They did that Tigers of Pentax, Hellbound. They did like Dio, Stand Up and Shout, I think. So they always have those great covers, and they always do it well. Actually, fun fact about Destruction: Randy Black, the drummer, is an excellent hockey player.
Oh, really?
If ever you guys get to meet him, he's really good. Really good.
Huh.
Cool guy.
He's Canadian also.
Oh, okay.
So that's it. Number 3. So a band that I completely forgot about until like OV recommended, it's Exumer. I forgot how Bay Area they sound, and actually most of my life I thought they were from the Bay Area. They have so many like Exodus moment. It's ridiculous, but they almost like sometimes do Exodus better than what Exodus is doing now. It's crazy. But some of my favorite songs on there were Raptor, Dust Eater is amazing, and also like Vertical Violence. Number 2 was VoiVod. So VoiVod, and a lot of my co-band, my go people from like Quebec, like I don't know what's with the prog metal, but like Gorguts, and a lot of these bands are super technical, crazy, progressive, advanced thrash metal or death metal, like. And every time I listen to VoiVod now, I always hear a band like Gentle Giant in my mind, a lot of the obscure prog bands that was around in the 70s. Like Dan is a big fan of that. Dan, the guitar player, he also played in a prog cover band called Jurassic Park, I think it's called something like that. In Quebec with like other amazing musicians, and they do like Yes and Genesis and Jethro Tull cover. And it's like done like exactly like on the album. I like at first like The Wake. It's such an amazing album. The album that they did before, that it was almost impossible for them to outperform that album to my taste. But they came close to it. It's not there, but it's almost there. And like the musicianship, they created not only their own music style, but their own world with like Away's artwork and how they like the drawing and what they're talking about and the words like Morgoth, and they invent these like crazy characters like Korgal, and so it's amazing. Like it's not only like a band, it's also like a vision in a different world. And
mythology.
Yeah, their music is so abstract and hard to listen to because they do this like dissonant chords. Like Piggy, who's now passed away, mastered a long time ago. But his fingers, when you look on his neck and the way that they're used to play, it looks like all the fingers were stuck in the same spot, right? And I'm like, what's this chord? Like, show me, right? And they're like, this is the ugliest chord I ever heard in my life, and he just loved it and put it all over the place. So yeah, favorite song on the VoiVod, Memory Failure, Synchro Anarchy, and Sleeps Off. You have to be in the right frame of mind to listen to it. You gotta be wanting to listen to that. If you want Midnight or something like that, you go to that. If you want something that's gonna challenge your mind, you go and listen to VoiVod. And number 1 for me, Sodom. Love this album. I think Sodom somehow almost like started to become the new Motorhead or the new like they do it. Just the way they play metal just sounds so genuine. I don't know if it sounds more genuine than say Kreator of Destruction, but it's just like you can still feel the pain and anger, and even in their slower song, it's just menacing and very like well constructed. So and you know what, when I was younger, Sodom, aside like listening to Blasphema every 6 minutes and then the Sign of Evil because that's what you had to do, but you know, they were not my favorite band at that time, but it kind of swapped recently where like Sodom now, I'm like dying to see them live. I would love to see them live. Where I feel they just represent like the true metal. It's like a it's from the heart. You can tell, you can hear it. So that's it. That's my sixth album, but it was difficult. Like I thought like oh, okay, I'll go with that and that, but I removed my like personal knowledge aside and just listening to the music, and that's my votes.
Very good, very good. Great points.
This is pretty cool. They got 3 different first places.
Yeah, it's across the board tonight.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign. That means it's not easy, right?
Some people are on top, some people are at the bottom, the next guy's got them flip flop. Yeah, it's cool. All right, so next we go to Count Ralphus and get his picks tonight.
All right. So yeah, I liked all 6 of these albums. I think these 6 are better than the last 6 we did from part 1. Like, there's no albums that I really dislike in this.
Wow.
But, for number 6, I'm gonna have to go with Kreator, Hate Uberalis. And I like the album, but you know, when I compare it to their great classic stuff, it's way off. But I like their more recent albums, and you know, I mean, with the Hate Uberalis, they already had the album Flag of Hate, and I like how Aggression's from hate from hell to hate, or I forgot, I got it mixed up already. From hell with hate. Yeah, I like that better. But yeah, so then I'm gonna go number 5 with Exumer. This is a band that I just skipped out on back in the day. I've heard it, but like none of my friends really had it. I don't remember them ever coming around and touring. They're just one of those bands that you know, you remember seeing the ads for it and stuff, but I just never got around to getting it. But I actually, for this episode, I ended up going through their discography and listening to everything to see where they stand today with their stuff, and I was surprised how much they still sound like the same band. They're playing that really solid thrash, and it's really good production. Good drums, everything about it was good. I probably would have liked this a lot more if I would have had them back in the day. And I've given this album 2 listens, and it got better with each listen. So if I ever get it, I'll like it more and more. Then so number 4 is gonna be Aggression. I love the album cover. I love the title of the album. I think the drums are amazing. Let's Burn This Church to the Ground. I love that song. I love the whole energy, and if Kreator and the Metallica and Megadeth, that's what they're lacking, is this kind of energy, you know. This is the way thrash should be done. This is they're still doing it after all these years. I think it's really great. A lot of great leads throughout the album. Really like it. All right, number 3, I'm gonna go with Destruction. Great album, but you know, a lot of like what Danny was saying, everybody else, but with Mike missing, it's definitely disappointing. But this is a great, fast thrashing album. They haven't really changed too much. You know, it's good production and everything. I love the GBH cover. That's how you do an old punk hardcore cover when you're a thrash band. You do it even faster and heavier than the original, not like Megadeth did. Sorry, Obi, have to bring Megadeth again. But
that's fine.
So yeah, number 2 is I'm going with VoiVod. You know, I love the early stuff, but they're a band that stands alone by themselves to me. Like Danny was saying, with the artwork and the whole world that they've created, there's no other bands that I listen to that's like this. So when I'm in the mood for this kind of music, it's this. And you know, I love the Wake album, but something about this album right off the bat, I listened to it even a little bit more than I listened to the Wake. And I like a lot of their recent albums. This is just such a unique band, and they stand alone in what they do. I just really love it. It was one of my favorite albums of last year, but my favorite album of 2020, well, probably I never really did look through the whole list, but I think the one I listened to the most was that Genesis 19 by Sodom. I fucking love that album. It's just slamming all the way through. Frank Blackfire being back in the band definitely like revved it up, and it gave it when I heard it, I just kept thinking of Agent Orange. Like that's where it goes back to for this album with me, you know. With the VoiVod, it brings me back to Nothing Face at times, but with the different kind of vocal styles, Angel Ripper's got such a great, powerful voice still after all these years. This album sounded really fresh to me, and it was probably my favorite album of 2020. So yeah, my number one is Sodom, and that's it.
Cool. Sodom's that's a strong record for sure. I almost forgot about it because it was released in the dark year of 2020. But when someone mentioned to do that one, I was like, yeah, let me revisit that. And I listened to that quite a bit in 2020 because there was absolutely nothing else to do. You'd get a new record and it was like, wow, I can actually sit and study this thing. You don't have to work. You can't leave the house. And but anyhow, we're gonna move over to Christian next, and welcome back to the show. And then we'll go over to Ed, and we'll go to Levin, and then I'll wrap it up, and we'll go back to our faithful scorekeeper to wrap this episode up tonight.
All right, good to be on the channel again. So trying to go through and ranking these albums, I knew what my number one pick was going to be, but I would say the other five I had a really tough time with. I mean, none of these albums suck at all, and they're all really good. But I got to pick one at number 6, and for me, that one was Destruction, Diabolical. One of the things I thought was interesting about this one is that it's kind of similar to Kreator, where they kind of have that intro opening with that spaghetti western type of music going into, you know, something really fast and heavy. I think my favorite tracks on this one are probably the title track, which was its
Diabolical.
Apathy. I'm sorry, I'm like trying to read my notes here and I'm forgetting that. Last of a Dying Breed, that's a good one. And the cover song that they did, City Baby Attack by Rats, I thought was an excellent cover. Coming up to number 5, that's going to be Hostile Defiance by Exumer. I kind of thought they had out of all these bands almost like a hardcore punk type of influence a little bit, and you know, that's not unlike the other Bay Area bands, I guess. Favorite tracks would be Order of the Shadows. I think that one has a blazing solo. Vertical Violence, the opening track, Hostile Defiance. I also thought it was interesting they did the Scorpions cover on this one. He's a woman. Yeah. He's a man.
Yeah.
I prefer the original, to be honest, but it is off of one of my favorite Scorpions albums, so I guess I'm they did it, but
that's a good album.
It's a great
album. Yeah. So number 4 for me, it's going to be Kreator, Hate Uber Alice. So I saw them back last fall. They were opening for Merciful Fate, and then Midnight went on before them. I just thought they just put on an awesome show. It was excellent performance. I think my favorite is this one, the title track, I think, Hate Uber Alice. I mean, like they say in the song, hate's a virus of the world, and I don't think there's anything more true at this point. Killer Jesus is another great song. I like Midnight Sun, where they have the female singing that sounds a little bit creepy. It's a little bit different, but I like it. And then the last track of the album, Dying Planet, you know, it's a little bit slower than a couple of the songs, but it's just still very heavy. Number 3 for me is going to be Genesis 19 by Sodom. So these guys, I think they remind me of Venom a little bit, and I think his vocals sound like Kronos, but definitely like a more evil Kronos. I like the track Sodom and Gomorrah. Euthanasia, I thought that has a great riff to it. Waldo and Pigpen is a freaking killer song, and for some reason, this is going to sound completely silly, but when I hear it, I'm picturing like, where's Waldo and Pigpen from Charlie Brown, or like it sounds like such a silly thing, but I don't know. I could picture them like evil versions of them headbanging to this, and I like the closing track, Friendly Fire. So that was number 3. So now we got to go to number 2. So for me, that one's going to be From Hell with Hate, from Aggression. So I didn't really listen to this album too much prior to doing this episode, and I almost like felt embarrassed. Like, I know one of the guys is in the band, and if this album sucks, like, I feel bad like trashing it, but that's not the case. For me, when I was looking at the titles of the songs, I saw the one track Antichrist Double Cunt, and without even listening to it, I'm already sold on this thing, and that's a killer song.
It's almost like a Belfagor title.
Yeah. Ouija Zozo's Board, I think, is also a really killer song. Just a great feeling. It's just that, you know, has that kind of creepy horror movie type of opening. Great guitar blazing solos on that, and Left Hand Larceny. It's just like that's just freaking epic. And it's, you know, the proper, it's, you know, the album opens properly with the Jesus of Nazareth song, and then just closes properly with Left Hand Larceny, and just never lets up anywhere in between. So that leaves me with my number 1 pick, and that's gonna be Synchro Anarchy from VoiVod. So I got to see these guys last month in New York City. I thought it was an awesome show. It was like a 40th anniversary tour, so they played a little bit of everything from every era of the band, and they did pull out like they pull out some good nuggets on that one. And actually, when I was standing in between the band that opened from them before they went on, Snake was walking through the crowd, and I feel this guy kind of like I don't want to say pushed me out of the way, but kind of like nudged me out of the way, and then I look around, I'm like, oh shit, that's fucking Snake, and he's wearing the worn out Saxon Wheels of Steel's t-shirt. But you know, this album to me, it sounds like it kind of sounds like a cross between like Dimension Hatros and Nothing Face, like that era, with maybe a little bit of like Outer Limits and like Angel Rat thrown in there. I think most of their recent albums kind of have that sound, but this one, it doesn't sound like the other new ones. Like, it's still, I mean, it still sounds like VoiVod, but it's, you know, it sounds different than The Wake or Target Earth or any of those ones, but it's still freaking amazing. It's I think it's probably one of the weirdest albums they've done. It's just so, you know, it's got that technical aspect to it, and it's just quirky and weird. That kind of weirdness that I think Denny was saying that you get from like a Gentle Giant. You have like that aspect to it too, but it's still freaking heavy and awesome. I think my favorite tracks on this one, I like the open one, Paranormalium. Mind Clock, it's just this creepy, weird, hypnotic, and then you know, the chorus to it feels like it's like a musical seizure. Leaves off a good mid-pace song. Quest for Nothing, another one that's just like really proggy and heavy and weird lyrics too. It's just like when he says like, I am an ant, it's just like, who would think to write something like that? It's strange, but I like some of the stranger stuff sometimes, so I guess that's why that's my number 1 pick. So
excellent. Here we go. This thing is scrambled like eggs on a frying pan. The standings. I have a feeling that Sodom might be leading.
So far,
I think that's a solid good bet,
because they seem to be steadily in the top half or the middle. I haven't seen them at the bottom yet. But anyhow, just in my mind, I'm not keeping score, and of course Denny's got to keep it a secret. He can't tell us yet. But Ed Farsley, what are you gonna do to shake this thing up?
Not shaking it up too much.
All right.
Starting off, my number 2 band is Exumer, Hostile Defiance.
Yeah.
I actually have a long history with the band. Besides loving, because that's by far, absolutely loving it when it came out. They were like one of my favorite German bands back then, with Holy Darkness, Iron Angel, Assassin, Violent Force. They were in that group of like the obscure German bands that just kicked ass. So I loved them back then. Second album was pretty good. Then they broke up, and I met Mem, the singer, about 20 years ago. He moved to Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
He was playing in a friend's band for a while. I forget the band became Mutant Supremacy, but I forget the name of the band that he was singing with. Basically, they started doing Exumer couples, which is really cool. Then they got the band back together. So we were friends. I started working at Wendigo, started doing shows. My first Rage Armageddon Fest, I brought Exumer over here. It was their second U.S. show ever. They co-headlined with Malevolent Creations. Absolutely insane show. So it was really cool. So I was hoping to see them in Chicago a couple weeks ago at Metal Threat, but they canceled last minute. So Nasty Savage played, which I was really happy about. So that worked out. As far as Exumer, like I said, I love the first album. This album is good. They have basically stayed in the same format, the same style since back then, so they haven't really changed. Mem's vocals haven't really changed too much either. So it's a good record. Not great. Some songs fall a little short from their formulaic style, but basically it's definitely a good record. Some of the best songs: "Hostile Takeover," "Carnage Rides," "Carnage Rides" or "Ride," "Carnage Rider." Can't read my own handwriting here. Definitely a good song. Me, one of the highlights is not on the album, but I don't have the album, so I'll listen to it on Spotify. Are the covers, the Entombed cover and the Scorpions cover. I love it. I mean, I love the song to begin with, and their take. It doesn't sound like a Scorpion song anymore. It sounds like an Exumer song, where they sped it up, the double bass in the chorus. It really works well. I give them a lot of credit for that cover. I did a really good job on it. Number 5, Destruction, Diabolical. Best album they've done in a while. I've always liked Destruction. I mean, back in the day, they were, Sodom, Kreator Destruction, the German, the trifecta right there. So Destruction have been fantastic since they came back together. They've been up and down. This album is good, not as great as some of the other ones. The early ones they cannot compare to, but it's definitely better than I think the last couple albums they've put out. Some of the best songs: "State of Apathy," "Ghost from the Past." Excellent songs. Songs like "The Lonely Wolf" definitely fall short. That's where Destruction just kind of feel like just going through emotions. But overall, a good record. Number 4, I mean, my next 4 albums are all stellar albums, so it's kind of hard to choose, but I had to go somewhere, so I'm going with Aggression, From Hell to Hate. I've known this band. I've got another long history with this band, besides the fact that the man's sitting right there. Back in the 80s, I loved their first demo. Got in touch with them. Me and the guy I did the fanzine, the Book of Armageddon with, we both loved Aggression. So we featured them in the first 3 issues of the fanzine, including an interview with Death in the 3rd issue. So I go way back with the band. I love the band. This album, I think, is the strongest album they've put out. It just kicks ass right from the beginning. It just goes for your throat, and it never lets up. Denny's vocals are fantastic. The riffs are brutal as hell. Just they're catchy, they're intense. It's a great record. What can I say? Let's see, couple of standout songs here. Night Stalker. I love the melodic singing during the chorus. Great job, Denny. I love it. Precise Execution. Should have been a full song. It's like only a minute long. It just kicks ass, and then goes into Worthy of Death, another great song. Crown of Still Creek, this epic 7-minute classic, brutal as hell. Hand Larceny, just a great album, all from start to finish. My number 3 album, Kreator, Hate Uber Alice, another great record. This one I have had. I bought from Steve's store a couple of years ago when it came out. Great record. I love Kreator. Have loved Kreator since the first album. And since they got the last 20 years, I think they're one of the most consistent thrash bands, like Overkill. They have a dialed in formula that they use on every album. Denny's absolutely right about the soccer choruses, but I like them. I like the way Kreator does them. Some bands can't pull it off. I like the way Kreator does it. I think it's great. It really adds to the live experience. And this album, it's a carbon copy of most of their records. Not as good as some of the last ones, but still a great record. Just brutal thrash from start to finish. Some songs fall a little short, but for the most part, it's really good. The title track, Hate Uber Alice, fantastic. Midnight Sun, one of the 2 songs with female backing vocals, which really actually come across very well. They had kind of a melodic melody to Kreator, and I like it. It's really kind of contrasts to Millay's just aggressive, violent vocals. Demonic Future, just a ruthless song. Great stuff. Let's see here. Number 2, Sodom, Genesis 19. Sodom has been one of the greatest bands ever. They've never really changed their sound. They've never put out a bad record. They've never done anything bad. Angel Ripper is one of the best songwriters, one of the best vocalists in thrash. Back in the day, like someone else mentioned, it was like Kreator, Destruction, Sodom. Those are the trifecta. Sodom was always like at the bottom of that list. but they've risen to the top of that list. Just always been great. Got to see it many, many times, thankfully, and just one of the best bands live. This album just absolutely does not disappoint in any way. Like Motorhead, AC/DC, the Ramones, they never change their style. You got something dialed in that works, don't fuck with it. Don't change it. And they have never changed it. They just get better with age. It's a pure Sodom record, 100%. Heavy mid-paced rhythms, speed thrash. Even got some grinding parts on this album, like Dehumanized and Friendly Fire. Just a great record. Euthanasia, Genesis 19, Harpooner, all great songs. Number one album, along with pretty much one of the number one bands of all time, VoiVod, Synchro Anarchy. What can I say about VoiVod? I've loved VoiVod since I first heard War and Pain, first dropped that needle on the album. Been one of my all-time favorite bands. Back in the 80s, I couldn't tell you the amount of times I saw them live. We used to follow them on tour all around the Northeast, playing from Pittsburgh to Boston, everywhere in between. Just wherever they went, we followed, and they ruled. Every album they've done is great. They've never really faltered. Some of the albums are only very good as opposed to being phenomenal in every way. The Wake is one of those phenomenal albums, the last record they put out. This record is fantastic. Not as phenomenal as The Wake, but really, really great. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, VoiVod are absolutely unique in any way. Nobody can touch them. Nobody can sound like them. Nobody can ever be them. With their just great musicianship, the space age, speed metal, the fucked up time changes, and just everything about them is just fantastic. Some of the best songs, I mean, every song on this album is fantastic. The title track rules. Planet Eaters is probably my favorite song on the album. Mind Clock, Sleeves Off, it's just, everything is fantastic. Definitely a lot of shades of Nothing Face on this album, which I love. So, absolutely great. What can I say? All 6 of these albums are really, really great. It's so good to see bands going for almost 35, 40 years still putting out really kick-ass albums. So, this is a good time for metal. So, that's it. Cool. That's for me.
Thanks so much, Ed. Now we're going to move over to Mr. Steve Levin. See what he's got to say.
I've got some stuff to say, let me tell you.
Oh boy.
I got something to say.
Always good to be here, and I always enjoy hearing everybody's perspective from a bunch of guys that I really do respect their opinions of metal, because this is a pretty varied crew and there's a lot of experience here, and Obi gives us a younger perspective, which is beautiful, because sometimes it's about where you jump in the scene as opposed to what your older ears hear. So all right, well, here we go, and this is going to be ugly for Kreator, because I hate chorusy Kreator. I want to fly the flag of hate. I want to feel the endless pain. I mean, this is just like Denny said. I mean, sometimes I think me and Denny share the same mind when some of the stuff comes out of his mouth. And it's just that, yeah, this is like Soccer Mom. It's like skippity doo dah. Let's dance around and ha ha ha, we're Kreator. Let's have a good time on stage. And it's so fun. And no, never be angry. This isn't angry. And I love old Kreator. But honestly, this has been the same thing that they really stuck with since, it's been a long time since they put out something that I've been very passionate about. We're talking like extreme aggression. So yeah, but that being said, it's great to see that these guys are still going. They're still selling out places that they play. And, my appreciation for them is endless pain. But no, really, this album just does not do it for me. And anything they've done recently, I don't like the whole upbeat, up-tempo, happy melody sounding stuff. It just doesn't do it for me. And then right on the tails of this album is, unfortunately, the Destruction album for me. And whereas a lot of people, Destruction wasn't their favorite band back in the day, as far as the German scene goes, Destruction was my favorite band. Me and my wife, it was one of the bands we listened to a lot before we were married. When we had a chance to meet Schmier and Mike, we told them this, we got pictures with them. Those first few albums are just, they will forever be amongst some of my favorite stuff of any music. It's just great stuff. But this album, I really feel like they have been listening to Kreator a lot recently, and they're trying to follow that formula. Much like Denny said, it's very, it's just, what's really missing for me here is the hook. And you know what that hook is? That hook is Mike. And that's why they need Mike writing these riffs, because Mike gives them that little hook that you need to really catch you and send it off. And once again, another one of my favorite bands, but just what they did on this album was not my favorite thing. And then after that, we move over to Exumer, which was a really good choice, I have to say, Obi. It's a band that I have for a while. I have been listening to them for a long time. I caught tailwind of them years ago when I was just trying to seek out a bunch of crazy thrash bands that I had missed back in the day, and they were one of the ones. This is a great album. To me, this sounds like, especially his vocals, sound a lot like Kreator. He has a little bit of that melee type of voice when he sings, and it's just a good album. It's got a few songs that stand out overall. I really like Vertical Violence. I really like Order of the Shadows and Hostile Defiance. Really strong album. Nothing bad to say about it. I had it on, and there was a couple times when I had to turn my head and be like, wow, that's really good, you know. The next three albums are really, they all are pretty much on the same plane for me. I would give them all about a 9 out of 10, you know, 9.1, 9.2. The VoiVod, to me, it's a great album. It's amazing. Dan used to play in a band called Martyr also. When I knew VoiVod was getting him, I knew that they were on to a really good situation. I was lucky enough to meet Dan, and I told him that, man, I don't know how you do it, but you literally channel Piggy through your playing. He sounds so much like Piggy. It gives me chills. It's amazing. And not just that, but Rocky's bass, holy hell. What he's doing back there is so Blackie-like. It's amazing. And so sometimes they capture that true VoiVod that I love so much. This isn't as aggressive as what I love the old stuff. I think Tony was saying it, you know, Roar, War and Pain. I still remember my buddy heard War and Pain. He was like, I hate this album. I'll sell it to you for $5. I got it. And my friend used to listen or just drive around armed with swords and hash in the immortal worlds of Snake. And, you know, we would listen to this over and over. It had that atmosphere. But this is a great album. I love it. I can't give this the top rating because this is so progressive. It's not like anything else in either this week or last week. So to me, it doesn't really fit in, even though originally they had started out as a thrash band. This really is not thrash in any sort of way.
Exactly.
And the next band I have to give my number 2 choice is Sodom. Another great album. It's relentless. It's very much like everybody's been saying, has that double kick like Filthy Animal does. It has that whole Motorhead type of sound. It's a great album. And this was one of the bands that back in the day, it really split the scene with a lot of my friends that I used to hang out with, whereas a lot of them went more in like a weaker like punk rock direction, like Dead Kennedys, Circle Jerks and stuff like that, which I love too. But, you know, like bands like Sodom, Possessed, they were a little bit too much for them. And I still to this day love that Sodom demo. Holy shit, both those demos are so nasty. They're so noisy. They're sick. It was great that they went back and re-recorded these songs. Like Denny said, In the Sign of Evil, one of my favorites of all time. That was another one.
So good. So good.
Yeah, people are like, oh, I don't like the Sodom. It's so noisy. I'm like, oh, dude, it's heavy. This is, you know, and what a great album. So, yeah, Sodom gets you know, if I was going to give the VoiVod a 9 out of 10, the Sodom have to get a 9.1 out of 10 because it's just a little bit better to me. And that being said, of course, my number 1 choice is my boy Denny in Aggression. And not just because Denny is my dude and because we do think so much alike, but I feel like Denny and I also not just think like when we're listening to music, I think we create music alike a lot too. He has a way of doing like a little bit of like hardcore crossover stuff, but it's not like breakdowny. It's not like, you know, it's not like slow. It's more like that old punk, but it definitely has that crossover vibe. And I love this album, man. And I love the fact that Denny is an old school guy, surrounded himself with a bunch of younger guys. Hi, Dave, Kyle, Ryan, you guys rule. I love the album. All the players play their parts and they do a great job of it. And the one thing that I really love about this is the sense of heaviness. It starts out and it's really good and it's really thrashy and heavy. And the album literally picks up steam as it goes on. Right up the Left Hand Larceny, which is just an amazing song, killer album. I would give this one a 9.2 out of 10. And, you know, I mean, this is going to win over Sodom because me and Denny, like I can reach out to Denny anytime. I can't do that with Tom Angel Ripper. So Denny, great album. And I'm not just saying that because you're my dude, but yeah, great album. And this mixes things up even more for you guys. So cheers, fellas.
Cool.
Thanks for allowing me to be on again. And
of course.
Eve.
And your autograph photo of Denny Sasquatch Barth is in the mail.
I hope it exposes a little like midriff, like open chest, like, you know, kind of like Fabio type of pick.
I think he actually has his limited edition Super 7 reaction figure. He may send you that too for being that.
Oh,
that would be cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Hey guys, I gotta take off, but
okay,
I'll watch the repeat and see how this pans out.
All right, cool.
Well,
you,
have a good night. Thanks for having me.
Yep, too, man.
All right, so before I give my picks, I'm going to give Miles of Metal. Miles Berggren could not make it tonight. There's something going on with his kids. So here we are with his number 6 is Exumed. His number 5 is Kreator. He wrote the wrong thing down. It's Exumer. He didn't even write it down. VoiVod is number 4. Aggression is number 3. Destruction was number 2, and Sodom was number 1 for Miles. All right, so now on to me. I'm going to go with number 6 with Exorder. I thought it was a good record. It's just I haven't had much time with it, probably enough to give it a chance. I hadn't listened to that band too much over the years. I think it's a little bit like Ralph said. They never toured in the States and stuff like that, where I wasn't that exposed to it with the record store. But I thought it was a solid record. I was playing it while I was doing some yard work the other day, and I'd go with the title track, and I like the song Raptor. Number 5. This is tough because I like VoiVod a lot, but I was comparing them to Thrash. I think this is how I went wrong with this. I listened to this record quite a bit, but I'm going to bring it in at number 5 because I'm comparing it to thrash metal. And it is part of, we are using thrash bands that have strayed. Metallica strayed from the thrash. VoiVod has really strayed from the thrash metal, as Enslaved and had gone from black metal to prog in the same manner and form and ways. So off of VoiVod, I like Sleeves Off. I like Quest for Nothing. And going to number 4, I did not get paid, so I'm putting Aggression at number 4, even though I'm paid every week by having Denny on the channel because I love Denny's input for everything, and he's so knowledgeable and he's so fun to have on. And it's he's a pandemic friend. I met him through McEntee and Robin, and we had such good times through the pandemic. So, and the Aggression album, I like the Return of the Frozen Aggressor, how you redid that. I think that was I like that song a lot. The Night Stalker and Left Hand Larceny, I thought were some of the highlights for me. Sometimes it's tough for me, especially when I pick up a new record. And especially the VoiVod. That's an album I'll listen from start to finish. It's almost hard to pick songs from. But on the same thing with with Aggression, because I just started listening to this a couple weeks ago, and we decided to do this episode. Number 3. Am I doing this right? Yes, I am number 3 now. Number 3 would be Destruction. I'm a little bit like Denny with this album. A big fan of Smear and Destruction, but I think this came out at a time when I wasn't going, a lot of these albums came out at a time when I wasn't doing shows, wasn't going out. I did not catch this tour. I heard the tour was amazing with Nervosa opening up. I wasn't able to go, but I'm going to go with the title track of Destruction, Hope Dies Last, and Servant of the Beast off of that record. And sometimes I'll come around on an album even more when I get to see them perform some of the songs live, but I didn't get that chance with Destruction this time around. Going to number 2 is Sodom. I will go with the title track. I like Glock and Roll. I also like Friendly Fire off the Sodom record. That's another album I hadn't listened to. I listened to quite a bit when it came out in 2020, but it's been in the pile since then. So it was nice to revisit that album, even though it's only 3 years old now. And my number one is completely different than Steve Levin. I love Kreator. I like the melodic. I'm a little bit like Ed. I like the melodic parts. Yes, they've changed completely from 86, but they become melodic thrash and very European with the soccer style chants. I wouldn't say they're soccer mom, but they're soccer style. But soccer mom and soccer style chant is a different thing. So soccer moms probably listen to Taylor Swift. They don't listen to Kreator. But title track, we've all kind of talked. I like the Stronger Than All, The Killer of Jesus, and Midnight Sun. I hated it first because of that little voice in the background. I was like, what is this? And that girl, it's like the female vocals, but it's very catchy. It's way too melodic for Steve. I know he would hate it. I know, because I worked with Steve for years, and he doesn't like anything with melody. There's no melody in Steve. And look at Sasquatch is punching melody right now. So my number one's Kreator. So, and I always enjoyed seeing Kreator. I did not get to go see them Saturday. That tour came through with Sepultura and Death Angel. I heard that a lot of people went to the show, said that Death Angel stole the show. And I think Denny
Same in
might have
Vancouver.
Yeah,
Same in Vancouver.
And you know, Death Angel so solid. And I mean, Kreator in New York City was not, I guess it was, maybe it's co-headlining where it flips back and forth. Did Sepultura, was Sepultura the headliner in Vancouver?
No, Kreator was.
Kreator was, okay. So in New York City, Sepultura was. And
really? Sepultura happened?
Yeah. Were you there, Ed? No?
I didn't go. No, I had to.
Obviously, you weren't there, I guess, so you would have known. So Sepultura was the headliner in New York, and
That's weird.
I'm seeing VoiVod next week at the festival. It's VoiVod, then Soulfly, then Mayhem, then Behemoth. That's 4 in a row. It's going to be a heavy night.
Yeah, I would have loved to have saw that the other night, but I didn't get to that show. But I, like Christian and like most of us in the room, we saw Kreator to the opening slot on the Merciful Fate tour last year. It was good to see Kreator. I've seen them a bunch of times. I like the early stuff. I like the Enemy of God stuff going forward that they've been doing. The Gods of Violence album that came out a couple of years ago. And that's all I've got to say. So I guess it's time for a drum roll, and we're going to kick it back to Mr. Sasquatch and see where these albums, do we have a clear winner? Is there a tie? God knows what kind of mess
we have clear winners, we have clear spot, but it's kind of a weird result though.
All right, so let's go with number 6.
So number 6, Exumer with 21 points. You know, even though they come in last, I think it's a good record. There's like some good music on there.
Yeah.
It's just like, to me, they were like, and I think for some of us, they kind of like drop off the map. And thanks to Ovi, I'm like, fuck, then it's funny because Ovi mentioned Exumer, then I you know, it makes me listen to Iron Angel again, and I was like, fuck, I like that band so much. Like, Exumer, number 6. Number 5, we have Kreator.
Wow.
At number 5, with more love from, they have the most love from Tony Dio and Mr. Keeler. And some people like Mr. Levin, no love. But we do like, he did mention he does like Soccer Mom. You don't like, you hate soccer chants. Like, you don't mind soccer moms. Soccer moms.
No, soccer moms are good with me, and believe me, the soccer moms I know, they're listening to bands like Kreator, but just not this Kreator. They listen to like the early Kreator.
At number 6, at number 4, we have Destruction with 28 points.
Okay.
Top lover was Ovi. Ovi was his number 1 choice, was Destruction.
I'm faithful.
Then number 3, we have VoiVod at 34 points. And then we have Aggression at 35.
Wow.
That means they move on to the next episode.
I think we have to make I think we should swap and move VoiVod forward.
Okay. To go forward in the competition.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then number
whatever
one
you
was
say.
Sodom. Sodom is the clear winner at 44 points by like almost over 10 points.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? Like for me, it was like as soon as I saw all the selection, I already knew it was gonna be my number one right away. It's that like true it's hard to explain, but you can feel it when you hear it, right?
It's
just
the
like,
basics. It's the basics of thrash.
you can
Yeah,
feel the
it's
pain.
relentless. It batters you into the ground. It's just relentless.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop, you know. But yeah, I think that aggression has to move on, only because I know you don't want it to, but the VoiVod it's not thrash to me. It's just so far different than everything. I mean, I guess being what Steve said, that I could understand that a lot of the other bands aren't really doing thrash so much, but the VoiVod is so out there. It's such a great album, but it's so like, it's
I could agree with Steve on that. So hey, the viewers that are watching, what do you guys say? What's your top 6? And should VoiVod move into keep going on in this thrash metal? Well, it's not necessarily how we word it. It was a thrash metal battle, but it's bands that started out as thrash metal bands that are still going strong. So we have Metallica, I guess could be considered thrash metal, but when they play their old stuff, but their new stuff kind of hangs on it a little bit. But for quite a few years, they were not thrash metal at all. So I don't know. That'll be something we decide going forward.
Yeah, they do. Oh, and you know something that nobody mentioned is that today a lot of new music came out today for some reason, but VoiVod just released today a newly recorded version of "Condemned to the Gallows," first song actually ever released on Metal Massacre way back in the day. I think Metal Massacre 3, and it's a great version. So everybody check it out if you have Spotify or anything. It's really
cool. So anyhow, I guess this is going to kind of wrap up this episode. So please take a moment to jot down your favorites in the comments. And last week we were getting pretty good exposure on last week's episode. We're going to try to come back next week, whether it's next week or whether it's in 2 weeks, to talk about the newer wave of thrash metal bands. And we've got 6 or maybe 7 for that episode, and we will pick one to go forward from that one, because we're going to go with 3 from last week. There was a tie with Death Angel Nexus. I think we're just going with 3 from that, 2 and 1 from next week. Then we'll rally around a week or 2 later and take the winners and just discuss what we like best on them. And then we'll figure out some other things during the summer months here. And if you're in the Middletown area, we have some shows coming up at Quinn's Pins that I booked this Friday night. If you're in town, we have a Terminal Frost, which is a Pink Floyd tribute, completely opposite of this episode. We have Metal Strangers and Bone Tomahawk, which is more of a classic rock night. And next Saturday night, the 24th of June, another free show. We have the return of Sanctuary, the Iron Maiden tribute. We have a brand new vocalist. The other vocalist got sick with COVID and never got his voice back, unfortunately. So we have a brand new Sanctuary. Going to do a new stage show. They're trying to copy off a little bit of what the Maiden tour is doing now. They're going to have a Cyborg Eddie and do some Somewhere in Time stuff. And then we have Head Motor coming up from New Jersey, who is doing a Motorhead show, and I've heard they're pretty cool. We also have Scarlet Witch and Conquer at Will opening up local original acts. And then in July, we have early July, I don't have the date in front of me, we have the return of Last Pharaoh with Lost Legacy, Deveria, and American Amnesia. July 14th, which is the following Friday, we have False Gods with Replicant, Reeking Aura, Earthquake Logic, and then Harris. So we've got some metal shows coming up at Quinn's. And Ed, do you got anything going on down there in the city to tell everybody about?
I have False Prophet from North Carolina coming up in late July. Actually, sorry. They're touring with a couple other bands. I got local band I'm going to be throwing out and then open up. That's going to be at Lucky 13's. And then I can't announce it yet, but next week I'm going to announce a big show at St. Vitus in October.
Great.
We coming over to tour. Band I fucking love, so I'm really excited about that show. So that's going to be cool. That one I can.
We'll have to ask you again next week then. So anyhow, thank everyone for their time with the channel. To Obi and Tony Dio and Denny and Count Ralphus and Christian Maironia. I can't say it. Trying to do it once. One day I'm going to practice this. Ed Farsley and Mr. Steve Levin. We'll see you guys real soon on the Rock Fantasy channel. Bang.